or the behind Ruth Laraway here? You like that one? Works for me. All right, kids, you're going to need your 7.3, and we're going to take a grid of notes today. Grid. I believe that's slang for punch.
Yeah, it's slang for a lot. I think so.
Yeah?
You change that?
Can I change?
So I know which time.
You can hear me?
You're welcome.
Okay, it appears we're all here except for Natalie Arias, Maria, who doesn't know that we have. Does anybody know Natalie Maria's Arias? You want to send her a text message that she's a horrible person? Or does she have dates right now? In your own house.
Wait, what happened?
I came home and like my cousins, and they're like, okay, we'll just go get the bike.
I'm almost because you can $4 my month.
You should be eight.
But I think sometimes when you're
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I don't know, John. What makes you think something's wrong? Better than me. First of all, takes more pain medication. B, you have horrible teeth. God, she's awesome. She's like, mellow. Third, many people like me. It's natural. Yeah, and if you are, we love you. And if you're not, we love you. Oh, well, we love you. And, what else? Oh, yeah, and I am superior to all other teachers. Okay.
What is that?
And we're live. Did we talk about methane hydrate last week?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Did we talk about fractional distillation? The concept of evaporating and refining? Does everybody remember that crude equals unrefined equals a mix of carbon lengths? Did we talk about the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge?
Wait, what is this?
Yeah.
No, we didn't, the streamer act was the wetland, that's all we like.
All right. And a couple of things that I'd like to say about Anwar before we finish. So far, yeah, good. So far, to give credit where it's due, there's a lot of petroleum being extracted out there, and within the petroleum industry, the Arctic Ocean has one of the best records for safety within the industry. They have had thousands of small accidents. But that's actually, given the number of wells, a good number. They have been relatively responsible. No lawsuits about criminal negligence. Nobody lying to safety inspectors. Like, we got to take that. That's cool. We got to give credit where it's due. Fine. On both the Alaskan side of the Alaska National Wilderness Refuge and on the Canadian side of the refuge, they have been extensively removing petroleum for a long time. You can imagine it's an obvious target. Anwar's coastline is that little wedge in the middle. But much of this and much of that is owned by the petroleum world. So now the last thing they've got is this one little area in Anwar where they want to get to work. In some cases, the wildlife, to give them credit, adjusts just fine. You know, pressurized natural gas is usually heated because of the pressure it feels hot. So because it's heated, grizzly bears jump up there and warm up on the pipelines, and they're so cute, they fall asleep and they slide off. It's like, I don't mean to suggest that this is 100% guaranteed the worst environmental problem on Earth. But the part that I really keep coming back to is this is a national wildlife refuge. The industry talks about it like it's no man's land, the 30 days of night with all the vampires out and everybody doesn't want to be there. But nobody talks about the spring. You know, nobody talks about what it looks like on that coastline when the sun's out for 3 months. Nobody really seems to talk about the Inuit. We say like, oh, whatever, we'll just put some stuff out there in the ice and nobody will care because it's just ice and nobody lives there because it's just ice. And like, yeah, you know, part of the year it really is just ice. But you know, the pipelines are there year round and they do make a really visible scar on the landscape. They really do affect the migration of animals. Sometime in your lifetime, we'll get desperate enough to drill up there. I gotta admit, like, the entire concept of wilderness, that can't last forever, you know? Like, we will not have wilderness forever. At some point, we're gonna need that dirt for people. Like, human population's going like this. Don't tell me that we can carve out land and everybody's gonna stand outside the fence and look at it and be like, yeah, I like that. I mean, sooner or later, we're going to need to eat, we're going to need places to live in Yellowstone and Yosemite, and the whole thing's going to go down the drain. Until then, though, a lot of people are really saying, like, that one little bit of the Arctic coast, we'd really like to save that one little bit. You know, it's a big old Arctic coastline up there, and really, Anwar only protects this one little sliver of the coast, like right there. And the whole rest of the coast is pretty much open for drilling. And I don't know, I mean, Alaskans get paid by the petroleum industry, so obviously they're down. The petroleum industry sees a lot of potential, so obviously they're down. The American public is kind of like, I guess we're into the environment, and then they go to buy gas, and they're like, $5, grill baby grill. You know, like, we aren't deciding very carefully. Most of us don't think about that long list of impacts. We just think about, like, when I go shopping, it costs too much money. So we're going to want more petroleum sooner or later. I have a really sinking feeling about it. All right. Anybody want to talk more, Anwar?
That's the transatlantic.
I think so. As a matter of fact, I believe it is the transatlantic pipeline.
So as of right now, there are no current roads online.
I believe not. Yeah.
So those several things are proposed.
I believe so. Yeah, yeah. That's my understanding. I don't know if they get to do a test well. I know that they've done test seismic. I know that they've done test radar. They do like these radar bursts that they shoot into the ground, and so the different refraction, radar, some stuff, density, natural, blue magic. Let's call this. Yeah. Okay. We're going to get into coal next, and coal is like the last of our fossil fuels. We've talked about petroleum, we've talked about gas, we talked about the nastiness, we talked about methane hydrate, we talked about the problems with extraction. We talked about ANWR, which is one of the last big globs of relatively good petroleum that the United States could get access to. So now I got to talk about coal. And coal goes back in the United States to way before it was the United States. The Hopi Indians used to fire their pottery using coal. They had coal mines, and they had like a road network. Europeans found coal in the United States like 100 years before we were United States. Some of the first large businesses in the United States, or in the colonies, were coal mines. Back in the Black Lung days, people were already doing that in the United States. And, you know, the United States was sort of an extension of the imperialist success, which was a part of the technology age, the steel and coal age. The timing for the United States was just right. When we were just getting on our feet, and we had just gained independence, and we had just started to look beyond Appalachia and all the other dirt that we would soon assume, coal gave us the leverage, the easy energy to launch a steel industry, to launch factories, and boy does that help when you're trying to become one of the world's largest countries. Remember that the United States is a big old chunk of dirt. If you look at it compared to most of the other countries, we're what, like the third or fourth largest, depending on how you measure it, country in the United States. I mean, we should count Alaska, even though we didn't back at the beginning. Even before we included Alaska, that's a big chunk. And coal gave us what we needed. It gave us the energy to make the steel, to make the railroads, to make the factories, to distribute the goods, to really go for it. Coal's had kind of a spotty history. If you look back there, you'll notice it hasn't been a smooth ride for the coal industry. They had what you might call a black eye, and then another one. But nowadays, coal's doing pretty hot. And except for those couple of dips, it's been a pretty smooth ride all along.
What happened?
I'm not exactly certain about both of those, but I can tell you a little bit that I know about them. I know a few things. We'll go in time scale. In the late 1800s, we had really, in the 1800s, we had really invested in factories. We were like a factory nation, I guess you would say. And this guy, you don't need to know his name, I suppose, but his name was Franklin Gowan. He was known as King